Here we have Margaret and Ken Richmond, Don's sister and brother-in-law. Margaret and Ken are here to tell me a bit about Don's childhood and Don growing up before and after his accident. Margaret, could you please tell me a bit about your mother, Hazel Pugh, and the highlights in her life, and your dad as well, Ernie Pugh. What was his view on raising the family, bringing up the family?
Oh, there's a lot of questions there with information. I felt my mom and dad were pretty strict in bringing us up. We didn't have a TV until 1985, so I know we grew up with our friends who had TV. They wouldn't let us buy comic books. We had to read them at our neighbors with our friends. They did let us read the illustrated comics at the cottage, but not any of the Dagwood and Blondie ones, or the really ordinary ones that were fun to read. She always made us do homework after supper. She had extra books that, grade 2 or grade 3, extra math and English sentences and spelling and so on. But we always did a lot of traveling, so that was a good part of life. In the summer, we often went traveling, and I think the best part was life at the cottage. We had the summers there every summer, and Dad would drive into work and leave Mom and the 3 kids at the cottage, and we had a lot of fun there. It was free. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have a telephone even, so Mom would have her friends out. Sometimes we had friends out, but usually we entertained ourselves with the neighboring children.
And that's how you grew up, and you enjoyed it. You wouldn't change it?
No, I don't think so. That was good. Dad, I think Mother was a disciplinarian. If Dad ever got cross, he just had a big, loud voice, but he didn't usually have to use it. I didn't find. But Mother was pretty strict. I don't know about you, Donald, but I got lots of spankings when I was little, until I learned to smarten up.
What was it like growing up with Don and George?
Well, I was 6 years older than Donald, so when I was 12, he was only 6, and George was only 4, so there was quite a gap. But at the cottage, we all played together. At home, of course, I was so much farther ahead in school that, we didn't do a lot together at home, particularly. But having brothers or sisters, I think, is really important. Maybe you have a lot more family feeling. You learn to get along, and you play together. I had to babysit them, so I had to be telling them what to do at times. I was probably pretty bossy, because they were young enough I could get away with it. So I think it's good to have brothers or sisters. You learn to give and take a lot more.
Getting along with Don there, I've heard a few stories of you throwing books or plates at Don.
Well, you sometimes lose your temper, especially if your younger brother doesn't do what you say. And I was really cross that day, so I did fire a bunch of books at him, but I didn't kill him. He probably did what I wanted after that, and then I had to clean up afterwards. But I didn't do that, only once. I guess I felt guilty.
Apart from that, what was it like growing up with Don after book throwing and bossing around? And
we probably got along a bit better. I think I did feel guilty, and I thought, no, I can't do that anymore. Unless he got older. The 2 boys would play together quite well, but remember in the sunroom we had the train set up, and we'd make forts with blankets, and we'd all play together. Good fun.
Good brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I think you're a bit older. I don't know how old Don was. What do you think? What did you think of when Don left Canada to come to Australia? Was it a bit of a shock, or relief, or what was it?
Well, as I say, he had gone his own route by then, and I was married by then, and he wasn't. We got married in 1967. He left in, what year? 72? 76? What year did you leave?
75.
75. So we've been married 8 years. We had 2 children. He'd been way up north, and I wasn't surprised because what he'd been doing up north was very adventuresome. And if you didn't like teaching up north, down south would be tamer. So to go to a new land would be a real adventure. And we were used to traveling. We weren't, you know, we'd done a lot of traveling, so this is just another step for Don.
Oh, and Ken, you were married to Margaret around that time. What do you think of Don moving from Canada to Australia?
Well, again, I didn't know Don very well. He was in the Naval Reserve when we got married, and he did drop in a couple of times when we were just newly married, so I got to know him generally. But no, he was a real adventurist. He was single and ready to see the world, and took advantage of it. So, and he loved history, loved to delve into history. So the people of the world would interest him, and he did that with his trek across India and so on, and before coming to Australia. So that's kind of the kind of person I got to know.
Most people would never have that chance.
No.
A lot of people in those, you know, those years, 75, most people settled down and stayed. They wouldn't have an adventure like that. You really had to pick up and leave family and friends and everything else. It's a big jump.
Yeah, so it
Makes you kind of proud, really. You know, I have a brother in Australia, and that was a long way away in those days.
What contact, when you and Ken were married, what contact did you have with Don when he went to Australia?
Well, I don't really remember a lot of contact. You were teaching, we were teaching, we were both teaching, and we had 2 young boys, so our life was pretty busy. It would probably just be phone calls and, I suppose, a postcard if we got to travel, a few letters, and that was about it. Do you remember anything else?
No, it was so far away from our lifestyle that we knew he was there, but didn't know much about it.
Fair enough. When Don had his accident in 1978, had you seen Don since then, or?
No.
No, that was 3 years after he'd gone, and it was a shock out of the blue. I know my parents left to get out there very, very quickly, and it was just hard to imagine what actually had happened, and it took a while to get the facts straight. You know, I mean, phone calls were few and far between.
So it was pretty hard on the family, being half a world away. And
yeah, it was, because there was no way, you know, I could afford to go out, or that they needed me out there particularly.
Out here.
Out here.
You're in Australia.
You're in Australia now.
It's, Mom and Dad went out, and I was glad of that. They were free to go. So it was just a real shock. And then when you get the final news and begin to realize what it means, it's even worse. But I just couldn't get out there.
I think one thing that gave us great hope with Don's recovery was the article in the newspaper on Don's therapy, and they did a sort of a write-up on him, and then he sent it to us, and all of a sudden you could see that he still had that spirit, and he was going to fight it.
Good on
and yeah, it made us feel wonderful.
Yeah. How have you got on with Don since the accident in 1978? Still the same?
Terrible.
Well, we've